Benedict Spence is here. Benedict, very good morning to you. Sorry, I'm not feeling very charitable this morning. I mean, this guy's really starting to cheese me off in a massive way.
I mean, to be sort of listening to those words, whilst you at Talk have got the totalizer of the number of people that have come across the channel illegally, almost hitting 50,000 right there, and it goes,
Yeah.
oh well, it's only a pilot, and you just think it's wonderful that we've kind of got to this stage, isn't it? That we're over a year into his administration, we've almost hit 50,000 illegals that we know about, and it's the softly approach, and honestly, I think it's simply not quite filtered through
No.
yet, the politicians in Westminster, how seriously people are taking this. They're starting to catch on, but the sluggishness with which they drag their feet on this issue, whereas other countries are, especially in the United States, completely awake to quite how general publics feel about how much they're being taken for a ride by these people. And yeah, even now in this country, we're going to be years behind everyone else when it comes to deporting people. We just are.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, there's a great piece in the Mail yesterday. Sue Reed, one of their good investigative journalists, did a piece about how even in Europe now, they're so worried about the sort of the growing threat from the jihadis coming out of ISIS camps in Syria and in sort of, southern Iraq. They're basically worried that they're going to travel around Europe and create all sorts of terrorist atrocities. So they've set up proper checkpoints now in the Schengen area, in France, in Germany, in Norway, I think in Denmark as well, and also in Italy, Greece. They're all now nervous because they've all realised that this whole experiment with migration has been a complete and utter dismal failure. And not only is it costing the economies of all those countries hugely, it's also costing their cultural status massively, and it's dangerous.
I mean, as you say, it is just unbelievably dangerous. But people have been saying this for years
Yeah.
and years that this would
Well,
happen.
you and I have been talking about this for at least 4 or 5 years, haven't we?
Yeah, exactly. So it's not as if people have not been aware, and it's just the very classic sticking the fingers in the ears, going, no, no,
Mm.
diversity is our strength. It's all magnificent. Everybody wants to come to this country. We're going to drop them in Leeds, and they'll magically become British. It just hasn't happened. It hasn't happened in Europe.
Mm.
It hasn't happened here. I read a stat the other day that something like between 1 in 4 and 1 in 5 members of the Pakistani community in Birmingham simply refuses to identify as British. They're not interested
No.
in assimilating. That's just one community. This entire idea of mass migration and multiculturalism, not just mass migration, but the idea that once you're here, you don't have to assimilate. You can
No.
have your own culture. It has been a
Mm.
disaster, and we continue to reap the wonderful benefits, which are, as far as I'm aware, not very much. I mean, please, people write in and tell me it's
Yeah.
foreign cuisine, and that's about it.
Right, but we had that before any of this mass influx of people anyway, and to be honest, as much as, you might say there's great wealth to be had from this cultural exchange, up to a point. I'm not sure I've ever been to an Eritrean restaurant. I'm not sure anyone from Sudan has ever given me anything that I can really, take home and go, oh, that was great. Some of these countries which are particularly, ravished by war, famine, and all sorts of other terrible things, they've got nothing to offer this country. They're not skilled workers. They can't come here and improve our situation. And quite frankly, we just don't want them. I'm sorry to say that, but that's just the way it is.
I mean, the whole thing about the skilled workers and the sort of the post-Brexit massive influx of
Yeah.
people under Boris Johnson, and the idea that that all of these people are somehow highly trained, highly educated, and that our economy desperately needs them. It's a lie. Everyone knows it's a lie. Everyone knows that this has been done to suppress wages. That you bring in lots and lots of people on this scale, and they will work for a lot less.
Mm.
That's the whole reason behind half of this. And I mean the care home sector especially, where once upon a time, quite recently, our care sector was understaffed, but it had predominantly
Mm.
British or Eastern European workers who were highly trained, all spoke English.
Mm.
And we've replaced those people with people from places like India and Sub-Saharan Africa who are not highly trained, for whom English is not, in fact, even their second or third language. And we're beginning to see the benefits of this. The whole reason that this was done was not for the benefit of the elderly or those in care, it was to save money. And that at the root of all of this is what happens in Britain is that we're happy to sell off the family silver for a brief reprieve for a couple of years, and then you're met with the problem down the line. In that case, of course, hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people who will have the right to indefinite leave to remain and will cost us tens of billions.
I know, absolutely staggering. The other story that's kind of disappeared because of the migrant kind of crisis that's going on this week is the online safety bill. Let me play you another clip from that Channel 5 News interview, which, as I said, nobody ever really saw. This is what Starmer said about free speech.
I'm in favour of free speech, of course. I mean, the United Kingdom has had free speech for a very, very long time. It's one of our defining values, and we will protect it fiercely. But I said, but I'm also in favour of protecting our children. And I think that's really important. That's not a free speech issue as far as I'm concerned.
He's literally locked people up for saying things, and he's in favour of free speech.
He's a liar. He's just sitting there and he's just lying, and everyone knows that he's lying. I mean, for a start, he starts off by going, "Oh, in the United Kingdom, we've had free speech for a very, very long time." No, we haven't. We've not had free speech. We've never had free speech in this country. We do not have a First Amendment. This is something that lots of people would quite like to see, and politicians like him push back against. They absolutely don't want people to be able to say exactly what's on their mind, because then we might have been able to point out a lot earlier that a lot of policies put forward by his government and others are completely insane. The whole thing dressing the online safety bill up entirely as, oh, well, it's about protecting your kids, and if you don't like it, well, you're on the same side as people who want to hurt your kids. The idea, the gall that they would push this at the exact same moment as this mass migration crisis, at the exact same moment that we have the drip feeding of stories of attacks on minors almost every day now in this country, and of course against the backdrop of the grooming gang scandal, which his party voted against having a national inquiry for. I'm sorry, where does this guy get the cojones to sit here and lie like that?
I know. I can't believe that he gets away with it. We sit here every single day, and, for a while, I thought I was the only one that was calling him a liar, but it turns out actually everybody thinks that he's a liar. Downing Street actually got a bit worked up about it and started complaining about the fact that I kept calling him a liar. But let's look at Kemi Badenoch, because she actually called him one.
We actually had a video of how many times he had told lies at the dispatch box.
So it sounds like you do believe that he's a liar, though.
Yeah,
he is. I mean, in any other world, the Conservative leader, the leader of the opposition, calling the Prime Minister a liar on national television would be a massive story. But people just kind of accept that he's a liar and ignore him now, don't they?
I think it's a combination of they accept that he's lying, and also they've just stopped really caring about Kemi Badenoch being leader of the opposition. And I think perhaps it's a little unfair to Kemi Badenoch. She's not solely responsible for the disaster of the last 14 years. There are many worse culprits than that on the Conservative benches. But I think she does have to look specifically on this issue of the Online Safety Act. Lots of her own MPs voted in favour of this at various stages before it became law. Lots of them were very much in favour of this. So I think that it's a bit tricky for the Conservatives to sit here now that this act has come into being and saying, oh, well, isn't it terrible? When you're kind of sitting there going, well, you had 14 years in which to push hard in favour of free speech, to perhaps even legalise it, mandate it, put safeguards in place, and you didn't do that. You did the exact opposite. And so that's why I think a lot of people, it's not so much that I think that they just accept Starmer as a liar. They do. They also just don't care what the Conservatives have to say at the moment, or at the very least not on issues like this.
No, exactly right. I'll just get your view on, finally, Rushanara Ali, the latest government minister who has done what she said she would do on the tin. Minister for Homelessness, makes people homeless. Brilliant.
It is brilliant. It's perfect. It's hot on the heels. Hot on the heels of Keir Starmer's corruption czar being indicted for corruption in Bangladesh.
Right.
I think it's just, we should really go through the list of all the Labour junior ministers and all of them and think, well, there's going to be a scandal along these lines. So, I don't know, armed forces minister might be involved in gun running is the sort of story that we might.
I mean, I bet you if you actually worked in a newspaper in this day and age and you just set somebody onto that kind of investigation, go through, as you say, every single one, you'd find a story for over all of them.
Yeah, and the joy is, of course, that as government expands and it takes on even more control of your life and more departments and more ministries are set up, there are more opportunities for this sort of insanity. I mean, some people would say that, a landlord should be able to do what they want with their property. But again,
Well,
the
some people would say
optics
that, but the
being-
Labour government are actually making a law which would make it what she did illegal.
Exactly, the optics of this particular government saying, "Oh well, it's all perfectly legal and above board," even though wink, wink, nudge, nudge, we think it shouldn't be. It's a good old-fashioned political corruption story, basically, of morals rather than actual activity.
Yeah, absolutely.